What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the pod. Welcome back to the channel. I am here co-hosting with your boy Raza, and our guest appearance for today, none other than Daniel Riz. No,
Mirza
Daniel Mirza. Say what up to the people.
was good.
You want to shout anyone out?
Shout
Just
out all my peeps at the bottom of the leaderboard.
yeah, yes, sir. And those two dudes, of course.
Oh yeah, those two dudes. Can't forget them.
So thanks for hopping on. Again, just wanted to mix it up and have guest appearances from people from our league. So, usual show, we're gonna have kind of matchup of the week, studs and duds, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of Daniel's segment that he suggested, and then we'll go into Shaqtin. So we can jump right into it with the matchup of the week. Take us away, Daniel.
All right, so this week there wasn't too many close matchups, but I chose Farhan and Salik as a matchup of the week just because I think it had like the biggest impact on like the rankings. So obviously like before this week started, Farhan was last place and Salik was second. And then, because Farhan won, Farhan moved up to eighth and Salik moved down to fifth. And that caused Wajih here to move up very high in the rankings also with the win. So I thought that was a pretty good matchup.
Nice. Yeah, I think a runner up for that matchup definitely was like yours and Russ's, just because
Definitely.
it was down to the wire. I'm sorry, I got to take a shot at you that now, but um, like literally Monday night, Kenyon Drake like
I
popped
know.
off out of nowhere, um,
Last
and then
game.
Alvin Kamara kind of didn't have a great game. But it was cool. It was cool to see Kenyon Drake still have some juice in the tank, and him be kind of one of the studs of the week. I think that kind of helps us transition to our next segment, which is studs of the week. Danielle, aside from someone that put a nail in your coffin last week with Kenyon Drake, who's like some another stud or a couple of studs that you had for this week?
So I know everybody knows of the obvious stud, but I'm gonna skip him for right now.
Okay.
I picked Cooper Cup as my stud.
All right.
Obviously, this is like regular for Cooper Cup, right? 8 receptions, 127 yards, one touchdown. But I kind of wanted to just highlight like the rest of the team. Like it is so bad on the Rams if you're not Cooper Cup. Obviously,
Yeah.
my guy, Allen Robinson, 3 for 24, was the second, the guy who had the second most receiving yards. And then the next was Malcolm Brown, the third string running back with
Jeez.
one reception, 10 yards. And it's so gross. Higbee, one target, 0 yards. Like, like nobody's helping. I know Matthew Stafford isn't playing great, but like nobody other than Cup is helping that man out. The run game isn't going. Henderson looked solid, but I mean, they need a lot more. And I mean, what is it, the Super Bowl slump or whatever? I mean,
Yeah.
it's real. They
Hangover.
got hit hard. And then my second stud is the guy who, like what you mentioned, put the nail in the coffin. Kenyon Drake. I mean, he killed me. But I mean, he looked really good running the ball. And with that team hurting so badly, no Mark Andrews, no Bateman, and I mean, they got their run, and obviously no Dobbins and no Edwards. Like
Yeah.
they got their run game going, and they just beat the Saints down like that.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, I was very surprised by that performance. I'm not even gonna lie. So essentially, I was up 4 points going into the Monday night matchup, and he had Kamara and I had Drake. So I personally thought that was over. Um, but you end up winning some like that, and unfortunately, Daniel dropped to last place. I like
Yeah,
how you mentioned Cup and Drake because of like the differences between the two teams, essentially, right? You
yeah,
got Cup, who's on a team with like a terrible offensive line. They're struggling and they're doing bad, and yet this guy just keeps performing. And then you have Drake, who's playing behind a really good offensive line. Looks like he has some juice. Another person that I've been noticing finally is showing some juice is Joe Mixon. This guy for Ali
the
Zedi, he
guy.
basically won him his matchup immediately, dropping a whopping huge stat line of 153 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. Just to throw insult to injury and a big FU to everyone, he gets 4 receptions for 58 yards and a touchdown. And
He counted it for those who couldn't,
Yeah.
like, count that high. He counted it for
exactly,
you.
exactly. He counted a little weird, but like
Yeah.
he got to the 5. That was insane, and he finally had that touchdown regression go his way, so it was nice to see.
Yeah, I agree, bro. Like Joe Mixon, of course, Daniel mentioned it. He's like the clear stud of the week, and it definitely would not be a complete pod if we didn't mention it. I think another running back that did really well. Shout out Summy, Kenneth Walker. I mean, he just continues to perform. 2 touchdowns, 100 yards, couple of receptions. I think there's no like question that he's a stud and will be a stud going forward. I think a stud that maybe surprised a lot of people. Although if you look at his numbers in the past week, it's slowly been gradually going up. It's Justin Fields, man. This man had 3 passing tutties, didn't pass over I think 200 something yards, but had 178 rushing
That
yards
man can
and
run.
a touchdown. Like that's Mike Vick-esque, bro. Like Raza's wearing the freaking Eagles hat, bro. Like shout out tribute to Michael Vick, bro, because he was doing some magical things with his legs. I don't know how you guys feel about like Justin Fields moving forward though.
I think he just needs to get some more weapons. I know they just got Claypool. He's good. I think he's a really good number 2. Same with Mooney. And I think I don't know if maybe Reza was also, but a lot of people are high on Cole Kmet. I mean, he was also another good player. But I mean, like a lot of the players that you expected to do really good this week did really good. There wasn't too many busts, but I guess like one bust who was like a player that a lot of people expected to be really good. I got DJ Moore. I mean, I hated to pick somebody on my own team, but like, man, like the thing that was so weird about that game is the Bengals had just lost their number 1 cornerback. So I think Eli Apple, the famous Eli Apple, was the number 1 corner on DJ Moore like the whole game or most of the game. And they were down like the whole game. So you would think that they would pass a lot. I mean, they didn't even get the running game going. He only had 2 receptions for 24 yards, and he had no catches until Baker Mayfield came. And that was when like everybody gave up. So I mean, like that was bad. Another like bust, like I said, like a lot of the studs or a lot of the stars performed, right? So there wasn't many. I would just say maybe Duvernay would be a bust because he was projected to be the wide receiver 1 with all the banged up players on Baltimore. But I mean, I think like he's like a waiver wire guy or like a flex starter like every once in a while. But yeah, those are my duds.
Yeah, Duvernay is an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, with Rashad Bateman out, you would have expected him to really step up, but he's just not doing it. Just to go with another receiver, I was thinking of Devontae Smith this week in the duds category. It seems like they didn't really need him because, I mean, they were playing the Texans, but surprisingly, this was a lot more of a close game than most people expected. I think, like, going into, like, halfway through the 3rd quarter, it was, like, 14-14 that game. And somehow he still only had 2 receptions for 22 receiving yards. It was definitely an interesting one, and I hate to pick on Ali, even though I mentioned him in the studs category with Joe Mixon, but, Devontae Smith hasn't really been looking too good recently.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you added the point of like it was 14-14 in the 3rd quarter because I didn't know that. And like you would think that in a competitive game, like it makes sense why he doesn't do good in a less competitive game because he doesn't get as much run. But since he was in a competitive game and only getting 2 receptions, like that's something a red flag for sure. I think a game that was kind of put in positive game script, you would think for him, is Taysom Hill. And I would kind of enter him as my dud. Sticking with my quarterbacks, I know he's like plays everything, but I think Ali Rizvi picked him up. And like Taysom Hill, we don't expect him to get like 40 points every single week, but with Michael Thomas out for the year, you would think that he gets more run and more rushing yards and receiving work and tight end and quarterback, but he only got like 1.7 points, I believe. So that was a major dud in my opinion. I think Taysom Hill, like you pick him up and start him for him to get you like a solid 7 to 10 points in your tight end spot. So I think that was a huge dud for this week, and for me in my eyes. So in terms of studs and duds, we kind of talked about a lot of players. Keeping it more player centric, Daniel had a great idea of his segment for this podcast. So I'll let him take it away in terms of kind of what we're going to do, and then he can jump right into it.
Yeah, so I thought, in fantasy, we're nearing the end of the regular season, and in the real NFL, we're, just past the halfway point, I think, right? So a lot of the end of regular season awards, like they're kind of coming into shape. We're getting runaway favorites, or we're getting like, top threes and stuff. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to like look at who we think are gonna win those awards, I guess.
Okay.
So I'll start first. Obviously, the MVP, the one that everybody cares about. So the MVP obviously is huge on stats, but one thing that I don't like that it's like this, but it is the record. Record plays a huge fact on MVP. That's why I picked Jalen Hurts for MVP. I know he's not like the craziest yardage, like passing yardage guy, but like they're 8-0. They're only 8-0 team. Like I think he has a good shot of getting it.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting take. I think with Jalen Hurts, like the only knock I have on him is that, dude, Eagles' schedule is just so easy. They don't play like an elite team like on their schedule anywhere. Maybe they played one elite team this year, but I know MVP doesn't take into that account. That's more so just like a fan's perspective. But that's kind of my only knock on Hurts. But let's ask the guy with the Eagles hat on.
Yeah, I mean, fly Eagles fly. That's all I gotta say. I mean, that's definitely a really good pick. I like that pick because of just the sheer improvement he's had from last year was year 2, right? And this is year 3.
So,
yeah. So I mean, I think I mentioned this on the podcast earlier on, but essentially one big thing about Jalen Hurts was he wasn't throwing over the middle at all. I think he was like bottom. Like he was the second to last QB throwing over the middle, and he wasn't as dynamic as he is now. Like he was more of just a runner last year. So I definitely see the improvement that he's made and where he's brought his team. Yeah, you can knock them for their schedule. Like they're playing some easier matchups, which is why they're the record they have. But I mean, they can't control who they play, right? But I definitely see how it is a problem that they aren't like continuing to put their foot on the gas pedal and like destroying teams. And the biggest person I think of that did that most recently against the Bucks was Patrick Mahomes. That one game, he just put his pedal to the metal. Like they put up like 50 points on the Bucks, who are supposed to be the best defense in the league, and that was before they even had any of their injuries. So I mean, he's putting up a crazy stats this year. Even seeing him in person, like we mentioned earlier, this guy is insane. He's elevating his team to a level that people didn't really expect, especially after losing Tyreek Hill. It doesn't even seem like he skipped a beat. So I definitely take him as my MVP. I don't know what you guys think. Daniel, what are you thinking about that pick?
I mean, I still think that Mahomes is the best player in the league. Like he's the most valuable player. Like if you were to start the whole NFL over, I think he's going 101. Like he's just that good.
Bro, I don't know how we haven't mentioned the man himself from Fresno, California, Josh Allen. Dude, this guy is like lighting up the league with his passing yards. He's like making Gabe Davis seem like a wide receiver one. Of course, Diggs, but like I'm curious. Like I'm honestly baffled on how you guys think that Josh Allen isn't MVP caliber.
So
and of course, caliber.
So Josh Allen was going to be my pick, but I'm just kind of scared of that new injury that popped up. That's the only reason why I strayed away from him. But if it wasn't for that injury, I would have agreed with you that I think it was going to. Also, when you said Fresno State, I thought you were going to say Derek Carr. Man. Derek Carr and MVP. He was actually my sleeper pick before the season started.
Oh, man.
You know how that's going. But I mean, like for the reason I picked Jalen Hurts also, and it's kind of like similar to like Josh Allen. You know how like everyone's like, oh, Josh Allen sucks, Jalen Hurts sucks, right? And then he got Diggs. And man, he's been crazy ever since he got Diggs. And guess
Yeah,
who Jalen Hurts just got? AJ Brown. Man, he's like a
yeah,
whole different player. Like
that's true. Yeah,
he was like, I think what, last or second last in pass attempts or pass completions, one of the two. I'm not 100% sure, but he was on the bottom of that. And now he's like one of the better like throwers in the league. It just takes that one offensive player. Like we thought that it was gonna happen with what just happened, who just moved recently,
Devon.
Adams
Yeah,
and Carr. Like, oh, Carr was looking really good with Ruggs, and then obviously, we all know what happened with Ruggs, and then Carr fell off. Thought it was going to be something similar with Carr and Adams, but hasn't looked like that. But I mean, all these offensive players are good. So then I guess the next category then, offensive and defensive player. So I'll start off again. Offensive player, I think Tyreek Hill is going to win it. I mean, he just recently broke the record for fastest 1,000 receiving yards. He broke the record for getting 1,000 receiving yards in a season. So I think that he's pretty. I think he's the lock for offensive player of the year.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
What
think
about you guys?
like with Tyreek, that is a really good pick. Especially in that Mike McDaniel offense, like he's thriving. But you mentioned it like earlier on in this pod, um, him being the only receiver producing on his team, and that is in Cooper Cup. I think that'll like that white boy connection will still like continue, bro. Like he's eating up the targets. Like there's some games where Tyreek Hill only gets like maybe 5, 6 targets. Maybe not some games, maybe just one game he had that. But they're like Tyreek Hill can get doubled. But the thing with Cooper Cup, like no one's gonna double someone in the flat.
Yeah.
Versus you can get doubled with safety coverage on Tyreek Hill. So that's my reason I picked Cooper over Tyreek.
You know, honestly, thinking about this, for me, it's a tie between Tyreek Hill and Cooper Cup. So I guess I'll be the tiebreaker for this one.
Okay.
Um, yeah, Cooper Cup is crazy good, and I agree with basically everything you're saying. But it just seems like this year, what Tyreek Hill is doing, he's already over 1,000 yards, and we're halfway through the season. So he
Yeah.
could
Go
legitimately,
for
if he
that
has
2K.
another huge game, he could possibly break Cooper Cup's record from last year. And that's
Yeah.
crazy to say. It only takes 1 year for someone to break that record. That would be insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like the way he's meshed into the Dolphins' offense this year is just insane. Like I thought it would take him a little bit of time to, get the offense going and understand the scheme and like put up huge numbers. But literally this year, I don't think he's had a single bad game and a single low yardage game. Like he has
Yeah.
3 touchdowns on the year, and this man is, I think, wide receiver one on the season, which is insane because Tyreek Hill, you know him for to be the guy that has a lot of touchdowns. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess to break the tie, I have to go with Tyreek Hill.
Nice. What about
Let's go.
defense, Danielle?
So defense is tough. I feel like they always give the nods to the D linemen and the linebackers because
Yeah.
they end up on the stat sheet more
True.
often than.
Yeah.
But I think that the guy who's, I don't know if he'll necessarily win, but I feel like Darius Slay has been playing the best. Like just that lockdown corner. I think
Fly, Eagles,
honestly,
fly.
what helped them also is that they also got James Bradbury, who's also like super good. And
True.
like these number two receivers can't do anything with another number one cornerback on the other side. So I guess like unfair. So maybe there's like a knock on Slay. Like another guy who, because we were talking about like records with like Hurts and stuff, that Patrick Surtain, he's basically like the next Darius Slay, but the Broncos are just terrible. So I don't think they're gonna win any awards. So I got Darius Slay as my defensive guy.
How you
Yeah,
feel about that, Wajih? Yeah.
that's fair. I think you mentioned like D linemen kind of get the votes, and that is because of the stats that they put up. And I mean, hitting it close to home with this pick in Bosa. This guy, like, he's a monster. Like, there's no other way to put it. Gets QB hits, QB pressures, sacks. He can drop back into coverage if he really wants to. I think he's kind of the anchor to that defense, maybe besides Fred Warner. but Bosa is, I think, number one. I think number one is maybe someone else. I think Russell will probably talk about him, but Bosa is like a close second, I would say.
Yeah. Speaking of the one, I totally agree. I think it's like a 1A, 1B situation. Like
Yeah.
this pick, it can go either way in my eyes, but I'm gonna have to go with Micah Parsons. This guy, like year two, he's taken a huge leap from last year. Like their D line, I wouldn't say is much better than it was last year. I think they added the Demarcus Lawrence from the Broncos, so that is definitely helping. But like you said, he could do everything that Bosa can do. He can drop back into coverage. He can
Yeah.
just sack the quarterback. He's also a good against the run. So I mean, he covers all the bases for what you'd kind of look for in like your defensive player of the year. If not this year, I think for sure he's gonna be like an Aaron Donald type, where he's gonna be in
A
conversation
problem.
for this reward every single year. And I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's worth saying that Aaron Donald has continued to do what he does every year. So I definitely want to commend him for his, his level of play year in and year out. So I think that's worth mentioning.
Yeah. I agree.
But yeah, I
Yeah, I
think,
think
yeah. So that covers our offense and defense. So if we're covering offense and defense, it only makes sense to go through the rookies. Daniel, what are you
yeah.
Yeah.
thinking?
So I think we all three of us can agree that if this guy didn't get hurt, he was probably gonna run away with the offensive rookie of the year, Brees Hall. But
Yeah.
got
Yep.
it. Season keeps going. So I think the guy who's just been the most consistent has been Olave. I mean, that guy is he's different. He's like the only guy who can get going on that receiving core. I know Michael Thomas and Jarvis and like all the other guys have been hurt, but I mean, he's the most consistent guy. I mean, he literally caught a touchdown and he had a concussion at the same time.
That's so
Like,
crazy.
that was so crazy. I don't know. What do you guys think? I know there's a lot of good running backs too.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you in terms of Olave. We
Yeah.
always love Olive Garden,
Yeah.
Olave Garden. And dude, he's a stud. I think part of the reason is MT and Jarvis are out, so he's just he's a target hog. I really hope they put Jameson because Andy Dalton is just like
My God.
I cry when I watch him because he's so bad.
The red
Um,
rifle.
but yeah, offense you kind of hit the nail on the head with there for me at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, I like Olave a lot, but this guy has just been going insane, and Sami has been, showing his support for him. This guy, Kenneth Walker, is
Forgot.
just been going insane. Like Rashad Penny went down, and it seems like their running game got even better. Like he's just like even over the last month, I think he's put up like almost 500 yards in 1 month.
Jesus.
So I mean, if he was starting the beginning of the season, I think he would have been up there with Brees Hall. I think Brees Hall
Yeah.
definitely, like Daniel mentioned, is another caliber. But for sure,
Yeah.
I think Kenneth Walker can run away with this if he continues his good play.
Yeah. No, I like Kenneth Walker. Also, like, for running back, I think Pierce is also in the conversation. Like, you can't,
Yeah,
I mean, he's been amazing too.
definitely.
Like, he was like with Javonte Williams last year, led the league in broken tackles last year as a rookie, and now Pierce is doing it too. So it's like, I mean, these rookies are just becoming more NFL ready like every year. It's kind of crazy. And I mean, like, for defense, I don't even think it's close. Like, I think this is the only runaway. Like, even if he doesn't play a single game the rest of the season, like, I'm pretty sure he's still gonna win it. I mean, that's Sauce Gardner. Like, I don't think there's
Yeah.
a debate. I know Stingley and Aiden Hutchinson, those guys are good, but like this guy's just on another level. Like, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think we both agree. Like, there's no argument here. Like,
Yeah,
Sauce
not close.
Sauce Ahmed Gardner. You gotta say his full name. I don't know if he's Muslim, but whatever. He's crazy. I think he is the future. He is what like the second coming of Darrell Revis, and I think he's gonna be great for years to come. What are you thinking?
Yeah, like you guys kind of said it with your comments. I was even trying to like we have notes on our other screen. I literally tried to type in like Aiden Hutchinson to be like bold, but I was like, I can't, bro. Sauce is just that good.
He's just that
Um,
guy.
And like, dude, I think it speaks volumes to like New York Jets as a team and like as a
Yeah.
defense. Like they're the real deal, man. And like Robert
sure.
Saleh like completely transformed their defense, and
Yeah.
he's like the anchor to that defense. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even trust Zach Wilson to throw that much. They're just like,
Yeah.
let the defense do it. Just run. If you have to punt, fine, trust our defense. Like we're not gonna let them score. I mean, like you don't get a Buffalo Wild Wings flavor as a rookie for no reason. You have to be really good to
Yeah.
get that sauce. I guess
Yeah,
okay. I'll
exactly.
go to the last one. We have Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
So I mean, this one's not really who's the best coach, to be honest. I feel like it never is. It's just which team either performs the best or surprise the most people. And so I guess I'll start again. I got Pete Carroll. I know Raza and me are both not really big fans. I don't know if Wajih is either. I mean, Seattle, I've hated Seattle forever, but I don't think he's the best coach. But I had Seattle as a bottom three team coming into the season. I thought they were for sure going for a quarterback, but man, that Geno Smith, man, he is different. And I don't know. I think the Seahawks, like I was even looking at their upcoming schedule, like, oh, maybe they could fall off because like I think San Francisco only like one game behind, but they got like Jets, they have Panthers in their like, upcoming schedule. I honestly think they're gonna win this division. And I think Carroll's gonna get so much like love in the awards because like they were supposed to be like last. They could have been the 1-1. And now they're gonna go to the playoffs. Like, I just think he has a good shot at winning it. What
Yeah,
about you guys?
yeah, I like I mean, I don't like Carroll. I like the pick, but I hate Pete Carroll so much that I just can't go with it. I'm gonna stick with my big guns that I've been saying since the beginning of the year when I mentioned why Derrick Henry would be a good pick this year. I gotta go with Mike Vrabel. I mean, they don't have any receivers and they're still competitive. Like if you can even look at the last Sunday night game, they're fighting against probably some of the best teams in the NFL, and they're putting up fights and they're winning games. I mean, they're 5-3 for a reason. I think Mike Vrabel is a very very good coach, and he's been showing it for the last couple of years, 3 years now, and yeah, I think he will be a force to reckon with for years to come.
Dude, if you give Mike Vrabel a good quarterback, I think like he can win a Super Bowl.
Jeez.
Because he's had Tannehill and Malik Willis. So I like that pick. Like Vrabel is a player's coach too. I think I mentioned it in
Yeah.
the fantasy football chat. Like he's one of the boys.
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he was an ex-player as well. So
Yeah.
On the
it's cool to
Patriots.
see like that dynamic. I think coach of the year for me would be this is kind of the 49ers coaching tree. I wrote down Mike McDaniel on my notes, but I actually, as I was talking about it on this pod, I kind of switched
I kind of have an
my
idea who you're gonna
my
say.
my opinion, and I was like, dude, Robert Saleh, like,
Yes,
why
sir.
not? The first Muslim head coach, dude. Like, they're what 5, 6, and 2, something like that. Um,
Yeah.
dude, they dropped like I was just looking up on Google, like they dropped 40 points on the Miami Dolphins, dude. With I don't know who their quarterback was, probably Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, 40 points at the helm, like, dude, he deserves an award for that, man. I think Robert Saleh is like really good coach. Kind of wish we kept him over Kyle Shanahan, but hey, that's another topic and debate for another time. But yeah, I really like him as coach of the year, and New York and the whole state of New York is like kind of rallying behind that team.
Yeah. I mean, I like all those picks. Obviously, if Salah or Mike McDaniel won, it'd be like the second best thing other than if Kyle Shanahan won for me. So I'd
Yeah,
love that. But I mean, obviously, like the two other coaches who I think could win and might win are Brian Dable. Like, the same thing with New
yeah,
York. Like those teams were, I mean, New York was notoriously bad at football for like
yeah,
over a decade. And all of a
yeah,
sudden they're good now. Like, I don't know how that happens. And then Sirianni, same thing with record. I mean, I
yeah.
think he's a little overrated. Same with Carroll, but it's just they're performing really good. I think
Yeah.
Eagles have so much talent, and then
Hmm.
the Seattle's just a surprise team. So I thought that those are pretty good picks too.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention, yeah, that's it. This year is literally the craziest year I think we've ever had in terms of like flip-flopping, like the teams that you think are really good are now really bad. We are
Yeah,
running a little low on time, so I am gonna try to push us forward to the Shaqtin' a Fool.
gotcha.
So drum roll, please. This week's Shaqtin' a Fool is Sami Himmati.
Oof.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sami Himmati started off the week before actually the week started. He made a quick trade with Wajih, giving up some players on bye weeks to try to pull out a win. He ended up getting Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tyler Higbee, who actually is no longer on his roster. So Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't do too hot. He dropped a total of 9.5 points. Um, his team just didn't come to perform like he wanted, only putting up a solid 113 points. Playing against Wajih, the highest score of the week. Unfortunately, there's not much you can do when you're dealing with that. He put up 191 points. What can you do? He was destroyed by bye weeks this week, but I think it's something to mention that he made a lot of trades this season that he probably regrets and that he'd want back. Obviously with hindsight, you can't always, you know, you can't always win. So I mean, hopefully next year we'll see how he does. I don't think there's unfortunately much hopes for the playoffs, but let's see how we can finish strong. I think me, Daniel, and Farhan and are just fighting for the last place. Let's see, who can get out of that spot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And thank you for mentioning it, Raza. That has concluded our podcast for this week. Sorry on time. I think we're coming up on 30 minutes, but you can put it on 1.5x speed. And thanks for always watching. And if you want to be on the podcast, please do reach out.
Yeah, and thank you, Daniel, for joining us this week.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Exactly. But yeah, thanks again, Danielle, and signing off. See you people later.
peace.